This is Hopped Up. Welcome to Bisbee. I came down here to hit up the Bisbee Brewing Company. Let's go and check out what this place is about, have a couple beers.
One of the tourists said, well, where's the brewery on Brewery Gulch? The bartender said, well, there hasn't been one, unfortunately, since 1891. And I said, well, somebody should put a brewery in. And the bartender looked at me and he said, well, I'm looking at the guy who should put it in.
So you knew right then, you're like, all right.
So I knew, and I talked to my business partner about it, and he said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's find out what it's going to take.
Individual washing stations are a must-have at any brewery. That's the best way you can clean the glass and serve your beer and have it come out for a perfect pour. This place might not have the largest menu, but bratwurst and chips are always a staple in a good beer drinker's diet. Just look at that sausage right there. Looks like Andrew's really enjoying it. Man, and they just have these awesome stainless steel sampler trays.
Even in our IPA, we don't just take a pale ale and put more hops in it. Our IBU level is fairly high at 84, but it's buffered naturally by a lot of the malts we use.
All the houses in this town.
Another thing unique about this brewery is their beer is actually made in a separate building, pumped underneath the street, right into the tap room. Everything is pretty compact in here and there's not an inch wasted. It seems like it might almost be a little bit jammed, but it probably lends to them a little bit better for having a quick and easy brewing process and pumping their beer across the street.
In between the forms and my memory.
So we went to Guinness, and we loved their stout. Of course, it's a very old recipe going back to the 1700s. The stout, for our Royal Stout, it runs about 7.5% alcohol. We try to keep our alcohols fairly moderate here, and it's worked out very well.
This beer has pretty interesting history behind it.
It does. One time when we were in Ireland, it was St. Patrick's Day, and the tourists, American tourists, have had a big impact because I was talking to the bartender, and he was pulling out a green beer, and he said, "Thanks a lot." I said, "What?" He said, "Because of you Americans, we have to make green beer now on St. Patrick's Day. We never made green beer." It was some place in Ohio started making green beer on St. Patrick's Day. Well, I talked at length with him, and they made their own beer there, and he told me the recipe for how they make their green beer, and they don't use any green dye.
No dye or anything.
No. So our beer is made the way they now make it double.
All right, so Victor, we really appreciate your time here, but we have one last question for you. So if you could have a beer with anyone, dead or alive, who would you have a beer with, and what kind of beer would you drink with them?
There are so many people I'd love to sit down and have a beer with, but the one person I would like to have sit with me would be Adolf Seibert, and he was the person who came to Bisbee in 1881 and put in the brewery on Brewery Gulch here. He was a Swiss German, and he made beer in Newcastle in England. Matter of fact, his tunnel is right over here inside our tap room here. And the beer he made was a nut brown style, and we were able to find records of it.
Oh, cool. So maybe someday.
In the library. Well, matter of fact, that is our Copper City Ale.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We
Amazing.
took that recipe and we made the beer that was made here in the 1880s.
Wow.
And it's been immensely popular here. And I would like him to sit down and have that beer and compare it with
Let's see if you're on the mark. Yeah.
the way he made it.
Though heavy our hearts shall always be. I know.
So that's it for our St. Patty's Day episode. I'm gonna hang out here, have a couple more beers. Cilantro.
In the wall arching, no position, keep where the rebels are the sacred.